So the question's coming in all the time now on what do I plant this spring, food plot wise. And it's a very common question, and I get it, because there's so many mixes out there for people to plant now. It can kind of get a little overwhelming, confusing for folks, and hopefully today's video the questions get answered to make it a little bit more easy for you to make a decision on what to plant. Welcome to the channel, guys. If you guys are new, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and drop a comment down below if you guys have any questions. So typically on my rotations on what I plant in the spring and summer is it's either annual clovers or buckwheat or sunflowers. Those three things are typically what I plant. The reason behind it is I'm trying to build soil, but also provide a little bit of deer food during the summer months. And the question comes up a lot, well, do you really need to feed deer in the summer? Do you not need to feed deer in the summer? Well, that depends on your area, how many deer you have. Are the deer hungry? The typical first sign that deer don't have enough food is the deer looks skinny and you can see their ribs showing. My property, when I first got it, the deer looked sick. There was no food, there was hardly any browse, and the deer looked hungry. They were eating pine needles, right? Pine needles, bark. They were starving. The ribs were showing, and the coats, the hair on them, the hides look just unhealthy. And now you don't see that anymore. So the question is, do you need to plant a food plot in the spring and summer? Well, I'd say it's 50-50. It just depends on the area that you're in. If you're in an area that has a lot of agriculture around, and they're planting it with beans and alfalfas and clovers and such, well, how big of an area are you planting? Are you planting a quarter-acre food plot? It's probably really not going to benefit the deer too much. Are you planting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 acres of food plots? Then yeah, I would plant spring, summer food plots, because you're going to be able to provide enough manicured crops, meaning that the soil has been manicured, lime, fertilized. You're going to be able to provide a higher nutritional value than anything in that area, especially natural browse. Natural browse is there year round. Natural browse is the backbone to all healthy deer herds. Without browse, you got nothing, right? So this is what deer feed on 24/7, whether we were here or not. When we plant food plots, we're supplemental feeding that deer, right? Most cases, we're not sustaining that deer herd with a food plot. Sometimes you are, but deer need variety. They need woody browse. They need bushes and briars and shrubs to maintain their diet, to get enough nutrients in their body to become a healthy deer. So, browse is that backbone. Without browse, it's always important to increase browse in your area, whether you're cutting down trees through timber harvest, select cuts, whatever it is, to increase that briar content and woody browse generation within your property. So, if you have low deer numbers, then planting food plots, you're going to be able to attract more deer to your property within the surrounding area to increase that deer number, and which is a great process as well to do. And you can't do that without food, cover, low pressure areas. You got to have all that. So if you're trying to build soil, organic matter, to cut your cost on fertilizer later on in life in that property, then you're going to want to plant rotations of annual clovers and buckwheat and sunflowers. And that's what I do. And through soil reports, this works to where later on in those years, you can use less fertilizer because the soil now has that ability to hold those nutrients in the soil. So it's going to cost you less money to make or to put down fertilizer later on. And it works very well. I like sunflowers because you got those large heads. Not only are they cool to look at, but it provides good organic material back in the soil. Buckwheat is a very good soil builder as well, weed prevention, and when you turn that back into soil, it's also good green manure. It's high moisture content, and it's good for bees and all that stuff. Same with clover, annual clovers. Once it gets to the 2-3 month mark, it will start producing nitrogen. Remember, a bare seed doesn't produce nitrogen. It's got to become a clover. It's got to develop into clover and develop nodules on those root systems for that clover to produce nitrogen. So if you're using an annual clover to, turn back in the fall, is a very good idea for organic material and free nitrogen. Now, the question is, I see a lot of people wanting to plant soybeans. Well, soybeans are great, high in nutrition, but the problem with them is most times they're hard to get established if you have high deer numbers, because as soon as they emerge out of the ground, deer destroy them. They're hard to get established. Typically, if you get them past the second leaf, the deer can't eat them fast enough, typically. But what we did, we planted last year, we planted 3 acres of soybeans. We actually ended up fencing them off for 45 days. Took the fence down, let the deer have at it. The deer couldn't keep up with them. We had sunflowers, we had soybeans coming up through there. It was great. But again, do you need to plant soybeans? Well, probably not. It just, each situation is different. You have to look at your property as if what's around that property and what are you actually doing. Think of, if I plant this food plot, why am I planting it and what's the benefit from it? If you're planting it to build deer, if you have large enough areas to actually provide extra nutrition to the deer, then yeah, I would plant it. But if you have a little 1/8 acre food plot, to where you're trying to feed deer, it's just not going to work, guys. 1/8 acre food plot is not going to provide enough food to provide the local deer herd. It's just not going to sustain them long enough, if at any at all. They have so much, browse and all these different types of food for them to eat. Now, when you start getting into the 1, the 2s, the 3s, the 4, 5 acres of food plots, now we're talking a good amount of food for the local deer herd. You're better off in those small situations like that just planting cover crops to not try to feed the deer, but you're just trying to build soil and work on that soil, whether you're planting, little spots of buckwheat to turn back into the soil, or you're planting winter wheat in the fall and you're leaving that winter wheat grow all through the winter, all through the spring, all through the summer, just letting it die off, coming back in, planting your fall food plots such as brassicas, winter wheat, oats, rye, some clovers in there as well can be good. But don't buy into the big companies or whatever trying to push a certain food plot on you, because in most cases it's not meant for everybody. The glamour crops of soybeans and different things like that is sometimes not needed, and it doesn't make sense to plant if you have a 1/4 acre food plot. Just be careful what you plant. You don't want to waste your money. Most important, you don't want to waste your time you can't get back, money you can. But just realize that when you go to plant into this coming season, do I really need a food plot in the spring and summer? Why am I planting it? And what am I getting out of it? Look at those 3 things when you get into this planting season here in the next 4 to 6 weeks. Think about that deeply in your mind, and you will come to a reasonable answer on what to do. And if you need more assistance, then you can comment down below. Talk to you about it down there. Any questions, guys, let me know. I'll get back to you.